Okay, here's an introduction to Airscore as it stands at the moment. I think as we have stated, it's still a work in progress. The front end needs some polish, and there are a few features to be added before it's production ready, and a lot of testing, obviously. When you open the main page, the home page, you are presented with a list of competitions. Now this list here is our development database, so it's a different database to what you will see on the version on the web. The version on the web is also connected to a faster database, so the page loading should be faster. So Airscore is divided into two parts. There's the public facing part, which is essentially looking at results. And then there's the scorekeepers part. So I'll just take you through the public part for a start. So we have our list of competitions. So we'll have a look at the PG Worlds. And the public side is the front end is mainly taken from Jeff Wong's work. This gives us a list of the tasks and the scores. So we can look at task 1, looking at the results. This drop down box is needs to be hidden for this competition, but it's for choosing your class. So if you've got, say, sport and serial and open, you can use this to filter. You've got your task up here. Down the bottom you've got your parameters and task metrics. Each pilot's name is a link to a map of their track. At the moment, this map is being generated the first time someone clicks on the link. In production, it will be pre-generated, so it will be faster loading. So this track has been pre-generated, but on the server you've got access to, a lot of the tracks won't be. So the first time someone clicks on them, they'll take a wee while to make the map, after which it should be reasonably fast. The map has some stats down the bottom there around the pilot's split times between turn points. There's a thing here to add other tracks to compare, but that's it's actually something I did quite a long time ago, and I don't think it's working at the moment. The map has some layers such as the track and some thermals, and probably the more interesting thing for a scorekeeper is the waypoints taken. So the point at which Airscore decided the pilot had crossed the line and taken a turn point with the time. One issue with the map is that we've noticed with large diameter turn points, because of the projection of the map and the way that this circle was calculated, which is a library that we're using, not our code, where the circle falls is not exactly where the line should be on a large radius. So that means that if a pilot missed a turn point, it may be reflected on the map that they took it. So we need to find a solution for that. And I don't know what we're going to do, but it may be that we put a disclaimer that the projection distorts things, and have another simpler map, just a basic line plots, basically like FS, without the terrain, etc., to show the track and the turn points. You'll see the tolerance bands and things here, but sometimes, as I say, at the larger radius, overlay of the two is not accurate, unfortunately. There's also a little measure tool here. It could be quite useful. So that's basically the front end for the pilot, shall we say, or the public. There's a couple of pages here that aren't actually, we haven't done them yet, but our intent is if there's a ladder. So if this Airscore was, say, part of a national organisation and they were running a ladder, then the ladder would be here, and as Jeff has on his version, a view where you can search a pilot and look at their competitions, their tasks. So I'll log in to look at the scorekeeper side, which is probably the more interesting side. So if you look at the competition list in the admin section, we have a list of competitions here where we can also create a competition or import a FSDB file. The competitions that I create, I can delete, but I cannot delete competitions that someone else makes. Likewise, if I'm not an administrator of a competition, there's an owner who creates it, and then there's an administrator. Well, there could be, the owner could add one or more administrators if he has assistants, shall we say. If I'm not in that group, then I can view the competition in read-only mode. I'll have a look at, go back to our PG worlds. So once the competition has been created, we can go in and set it up. At the top of the page, we've got our basic competition details. And then we have our scoring parameters. Now, these formulas here are based on formula files, and depending on the category, it will depend what is available here. So for PG, in this case, we've got GAP and PWC. If I was to change this to hang gliding, then I can only choose GAP in this case. I'll just reload that because I changed settings as I changed the category. So you've got your basic settings here, what altitude you're going to use, if you're checking airspace, etc. You've got the advanced parameters. These parameters come from the preset file. So in this case, we're using GAP 2016, which has a bunch of presets in it. They are here, so I can modify them if I want. If I make a lot of modifications, I can also reset. It doesn't affect the standard settings. So these settings, I'll just jump in here, are a file that we have in a folder on the server. So if I copy one of these files, modify it, save it with a different name, it will also appear here. So you can make experiments or your own formula if you want. Likewise, for each year there's new formulas come out. It's quite simple to add. It doesn't require modifying the base code, shall we say. We also have team parameters, so we can have national teams or other teams. defined here, number of pilots, etc. Checks, we can do airspace checks, checking launch, so counting launch is basically a turn point, making sure pilots leave launch or start inside launch. In here we need to add G-record checking, which has been coded but just not put in the front end yet. So we're using the FAI validation server for that. Here there's a setting that a scorekeeper will probably never need to change. I'll never say never, but there's a file that dictates how we decide if an IGC file is good enough to use for scoring. So what's the quality? Are there missing fixes and gaps in time, or strange jumps in altitude, that sort of thing? That's this part of that file. There's also the settings for what we consider a takeoff and what we consider a landing. Thermal detection, which is purely for an interest sake, putting on a map of thermal, so it doesn't influence scoring at all. These settings you could modify and save a new file. At the moment there's only two, there's standard and smartphone, because we noticed when we were scoring the Italian comps, and a lot of pilots who were flying with proper instruments were also flying with XC track, I think, on their phone, and uploading that track file because it's easier for them to upload than connecting a cable to an instrument. Obviously the quality of the GPS in those phones was very varied, and some of the tracks had obviously big jumps in altitude, but since we weren't checking airspace it didn't matter. So you could set it up that you've got larger tolerances for accepting tracks by choosing that. We have a management section, so we can add administrators, allow self-registration. So this is in a case where Airscore is installed. In the Italian case, we allow our pilots to register themselves to a comp via Airscore before the comp starts. These things are switchable in a configuration file if you want to have that as an option or not. And then tasks. So here we can add tasks as we go, or jump into the settings for the existing tasks. These settings are the task settings, so the waypoints and the timings and things. This is for uploading tracks, and this is for the scoring. All of these pages can also be accessed by this menu bar. So because we're on the PG Worlds, we can, competition settings is the current page, we can jump into any task from up here. Just before I do that, I'll just talk about these two. So we have flying areas. Here we have a list of flying areas that, depending on how Airscore is set up in the configuration file, we can have it that when a scorekeeper uploads a set of waypoints and potentially airspace, that becomes available to any scorekeeper. So, and again, it's the case of this being set up for a national organisation, you might choose to have your areas set up in the system, and when you have a comp there you can reuse them. If you turn this feature off, then whatever is uploaded here is only related to this comp and not available to any other competition. So in the sort of the more classical scoring sense, where every time you make a competition, you upload waypoints. When you upload airspace, there is another page that allows you to review that on a map and make some edits if you need to. The other thing is pilots, so you can register pilots here, and if you have, again, in the configuration file, that you have an internal database of pilots, so pilots in your national organisation, you can pick and choose them from here and register them over here. If you have that feature turned off, then this whole section disappears and you only have external pilots, which you can upload an Excel file in the format that Air Tribune provides, or manually add pilots one by one. And the details of those that have been registered are here, where you can make changes. There's a check here that looks at, in the case of a team, how many team members you can have. So in this case, I think there were 4 team members in the Worlds. I could be wrong, but if a nation has, say, 5, then it will be a little alert here to let you know you need to remove one. So I'll just go back, or now I'll go to the task. So task settings. So we've got the task details up here. I can make a comment perhaps after the task. You might write something like competition task stopped after, over development or something. This offset is inherited from the competition setting, but you could change it here by task. Maybe you're running a competition over the changing of the clocks, or maybe over borders. Maybe you are running a competition on the Portugal-Spanish border or something. Basic task timing here. Again, those checks and the formula. So these are coming from the settings for the comp, and potentially, if you wanted to, you could change them for one task. And then the task definition itself is here. Once you've entered a task with a goal, etc., the distance is calculated and a map appears. I'll jump in now to I can do it from here. I can manage tracks. So I've actually removed a track, tutor's track, so I can show you uploading a track. So I take my OGC file and upload it. This gives me a bit of feedback about how that processing is going. So I can see my pilot took the 10 points and got the goal. This is a link to the map that you saw before. You can also bulk import a zip of tracks, and they can be in various formats, maybe with an FAI number or with their name. So it tries to match the tracks to the competitors, and if it doesn't match it, then it doesn't process it. So this should be updating, so that's something I just need to look at. And then you have the scores. So the scoring works in that I can score my task and the results will be reflected here, and I can review them. I can perhaps add a penalty or a bonus or just a comment, and if I choose, then I can publish those results, and if I publish, then they will be available on the public part of the website. I can also make experiments or try different formulas if I wanted to, or, if it was just a test, and I can have a whole bunch of scores here, only one of which is published, of course, or none is published. So I can look back in time to previous scoring. Maybe I've had difficulty with one particular track and I've updated it. Then we have overall competition results. So if I publish a result on the front end, it won't automatically go into the overall results, so that in this way I can publish partial results, provisional results, and not have them reflected in the competition overall result if I don't want to. And when I'm happy with these results, I can update the overall result. At the end of a file up here, there's a status. So it's just free text. I can write provisional, official, test, whatever I want. And that will flow through to the public side as well if it's been published. I'm not sure. That's probably a good start for an overview about how it works and things. Obviously have a play, raise any issues you find on GitHub or send us an email. Thanks for your time.